Hey everybody, and welcome back to Split Couch Games. I'm Scott,
And I'm Ben.
and a new Star Wars trailer dropped yesterday. Or yesterday for us, it was Friday. This is coming out on Monday. Y'all know what I mean.
Nobody
Maybe.
cares about relevancy with time periods.
No, it's not important at all. But Ben and I, we both enjoy Star Wars. At least I do. Ben's yawning, he doesn't really care.
I haven't had any coffee yet. I'm sorry.
That's fine. But yeah, the trailer was a thing that happened. What were your thoughts?
I don't know. Kind of middle of the road. I feel like there were some people, because I watched it when I was at work, and there were some people that had, I think, probably unexpected reactions. Because, like, there were some people, saying that, it was a very, very dark trailer and that, like, they were super excited and everything. And, after watching it, like, I didn't really think that. I can see why they may have thought that, especially given with, or given what Luke says at the very end of the trailer.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. A, it's Disney, and B, this is Star Wars. Like, I can almost guarantee you that that's something that's said towards the very beginning of the movie when, he's basically refusing to train her or something like that.
Sure. But I mean, I think that we saw with Rogue One that Disney's okay with going dark for Star Wars, and everything, like, everyone has talked about with the logo being in red instead of the usual yellow, and even like the poster that came out with you've seen the poster, right?
Yeah.
Like, it all points to a much darker kind of movie. I almost feel like it's going to be much more like we're going to finally see a Grey Jedi and what that means, because of what Luke was saying or the conversation that they were having, basically, where Luke's like, what do you see? And she's like, I see the light in the dark. And he's like, there's so much more to it than that. And like, I went through and I saw a few different theories about what it all means. And the one that I've kind of latched onto is that it's bringing into focus what everyone meant by bring balance to the Force. And it's not so much bringing balance to the Force as a whole, but as bringing balance in the Force in yourself. And I think that that's going to lead to a more in-depth discussion of morality in the Star Wars universe, which I think will be really good for it, because in the past it's always been, oh, light side good, dark side bad. You know?
Sure, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's always been super basic. Then they kind of try to branch out of that in the prequels, which is part of why I enjoyed them, but they didn't really take it that far.
I guess, sure. I mean, I don't really see what you mean when you say they tried to branch out of it with the prequels, but sure.
Well, there's it. Like I said, they didn't do a great job at it, but like there's like the idea that the Jedi wouldn't let Anakin try and save Padme because it was against their code. So basically they just like let someone die. Versus like the Sith would let him. Like, it's not a great thing, but it's there, and it's much more in there in the books as opposed to the movies. And I kind of like run the two in my head a little bit.
Whatever you say.
It's there a little bit.
I mean, I feel like if we're going to be talking about, shit, I can't even remember his name now. Grey Jedi and stuff, like, as far as Star Wars lore goes, I feel like there are many, many better examples than anything that was in the prequels. And without even, like, going into the books and everything that a lot of people would have read, like, I feel like all you really have to do is, I want to say that the name is Kyle Katarn, but I feel like that's wrong, because I feel like that's from a different game.
Maybe. But I mean, we're not talking about the games. We're talking about the movies and what they've done and what they need to do in the future.
Sure.
Like.
Okay. Yeah. No. Kyle Katarn is a much better, like, Grey Jedi reference. And
well, I also wasn't saying that they were mentioning the Grey Jedi wasn't really a thing at all in any of the movies. It's very much one or the other. I'm just talking about like the idea of what side actually is like, or if the dark side is inherently evil, or if the light side is inherently good. And there's sort of a small dialogue about that in the prequels.
Sure. And hell, I mean, for all I know, maybe even Kyle Katarn isn't a Grey Jedi, but he always seemed like one to me, based off the games and everything.
Why don't you go ahead and explain who he is?
I mean, the only games that I really, or the only like exposure to him that I ever really had was through the games. He obviously has a lot of
what games
extended lore around him. I'm getting there. Calm your tits, Jesus.
You're just talking very vaguely. You're like Kyle Katarn.
Well, yeah,
the games. The games that I have played.
Shut the fuck up. I was getting there. Anyways, obviously there's a lot of other extended lore about him, you know, comics, books, all that kind of crap.
Which don't count anymore.
But
Yay!
But the games that I was most familiar with that he was in would have been the Jedi Knight / Jedi Outcast series, like the couple of games that came out on the original Xbox. And then I can't remember what, if any, systems they were on before that, but they were also a couple PC games in that series beforehand. But I mean, it was always kind of like an interesting gameplay style because like you were a Jedi, but you also could use all sorts of guns and everything, which obviously it kind of goes against the Jedi code. So
yeah,
and you could use both light and dark side powers and everything. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I want the movie to kind of delve into the whole Grey Jedi thing, and I think that would be very interesting from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah,
but I don't know necessarily that that's going to happen. And I mean, maybe it's just because I'm being cynical and everything, but I like, yes, Rogue One was a darker story, but like, if you're gonna, you know, keep the main movies as canon and everything, like, it kind of would have had to be a dark story. Like, you can't really tell that story without it being dark, you know, unless you like completely rewrite some of the canon at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to like sit here and take Rogue One as like an example of like, oh, they're totally okay with making a, you know, darker, essentially more adult film.
Before we get too far away from it, I do want to, because I was thinking when I saw the poster for Star Wars, and this has to do with what you're saying, the Jedi Knight and Jedi Outcast games.
Yeah.
That poster reminded me of the cover art for that game because it's the lightsaber and then like there's the light coming out of the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And so that's actually part of the reason why I thought, oh, this is going into more of a Grey Jedi area. Because,
well, I mean, you realize that the cover art for the games is literally just like the symbol of the Jedi Order, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I mean,
yeah,
true.
I mean, like it. I get what you're saying, and I mean, honestly, like the hope for me had more to do with the simple fact that like it starts as red and towards the top it becomes blue. And,
yeah.
Like that was more of a hopeful point in the design of the poster than anything else for me. At least I think that's how it is. Let me look it up here. Yeah, so it starts as blue and then turns to red.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I said, like I want it to be something that does that, but I feel like looking at this as from much of a Disney perspective as I possibly can, I feel like the core films are going to be about, you know, the good versus evil, light versus dark, all that kind of stuff, and like it's going to stay that way. And all of, you know, the extra films, like the Star Wars stories, like the Han Solo film that's going to come out, I think it was confirmed that they're doing a Boba Fett movie.
I believe that's the one after 9.
Yeah, I think those are all going to be more focused on like the more gray areas of the Star Wars universe.
Sure.
So maybe not necessarily like specifically like we're going to get Grey Jedi. And I mean, maybe we will. Like maybe we'll get a Kyle Katarn film at some point. Who knows? But I don't know if the core films are necessarily going to dabble with that. And not like I don't really have any like specific justification or reasoning behind it. I just like if I were looking at this as Disney, I feel like that's the route they would go. It's either that or what we're going to see happen is because Finn has a very Kyle Katarn kind of story to him, because Kyle Katarn was a stormtrooper, he abandoned it, became a Jedi. It could be that Rey, you know, becomes like the good, you know, like I'm a pure Jedi kind of person, and then Finn is the one that becomes more of the Grey Jedi. That could be something that could happen.
That's interesting. So I mean, I think that we've already seen though that there's sort of a like Kylo Ren kind of went through his whole thing, and I'm still not convinced that he's 100% dark side of the Force user just because he killed Han Solo, which you can make the argument that Han Solo killed Han Solo. Spoiler alert for The Force Awakens, by the way.
For those of you who haven't seen it but want to,
we're gonna get one comment. It's gonna be like, "What the fuck, man? I was just watching it tonight. Like, why are you talking? Why are you here for this conversation?" Anyway, so like we already kind of have that, and then on top of that, like Snoke, as far as I can tell, and from what I know from the books, does not identify as Sith. So that there's already sort of more grain than there was in the past in terms of Force usage, and I wouldn't be surprised if that went like what you're saying. It makes sense that they, you know, for the core franchise, they want to stick true to the themes and everything that made the other ones successful. But I also just wouldn't be surprised if they went this route.
Yeah.
To mix things up a little bit more. Especially after the feedback from the last movie that it was just too similar.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of why at least I'm hoping that they change Kylo Ren and like they make him pure dark side. Because when you think about it, like with the exception of, I guess, like Darth Maul and Emperor Palpatine, every other Sith in the movies have, like, they've always been like this kind of, oh, I'm dark except for when I decide to care. And
I mean, Count Dooku was a character. Kind of. He was a character for literally half a movie.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
That's so it's so weird to think that like Count Dooku really was just a character for half a movie, right? Because he showed up like halfway through not even like halfway through Attack of the Clones, right? Like he's probably there like 2/3 of the way through. And then he does this thing, he has a lightsaber fight with Yoda, goes away, and then at the beginning of episode 3 he dies.
Yeah.
Like he's there for literally half the movie and he's supposed to be the big bad guy.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, I mean, like, as much as it would make sense, you know, since Kylo Ren, like, idolizes and worships Darth Vader, like, I don't want to see essentially another Darth Vader, where it's like, oh, I'm evil, I'm evil, I'm evil, and then at the last second it's like, no, I'm good, and I care about puppies and butterflies. Like, I don't want to see that done over again. Like, I want him to be just like some fucking twisted, sadistic, evil person.
Sure. Yeah, I
And
wouldn't mind.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind
just
seeing that.
Yeah,
But
because I mean,
I
don't
feel
know.
like in this day and age, though, purely one or the other just isn't super interesting, and it's very much like, oh, we're gonna have to settle on like one personality trait, and I don't think that that's as interesting to today's audiences. So I think that there has to be some sort of pull both ways to keep people interested. And I feel like Kylo Ren has that in him, and I don't think that he should give into it necessarily, but I think it should be there. But basically, like I can agree with you that I want to see a pure Sith at some point in the movies, like you said, like just and like what can make a Sith is like what we saw in the prequels, where Anakin just cares so much about the people around him as opposed to the universe as a whole. And I think that like that can be something important. But what Kylo Ren has kind of done is he's kind of just shut all that away, and he doesn't have anyone that he cares about other than himself.
See, but I don't know if that's necessarily what makes anybody a Sith. Because I mean, and not that
I'm not saying that it makes that's the only way, but like that's a way that it can be done while still having redeeming qualities.
See, but I mean, I feel like that's not even like that's how you get a Darth Vader Sith, where they're evil, but they're doing everything kind of for the wrong reasons, and then at the end they have some sort of path of redemption.
But I don't think the path of redemption is not required. And the path of redemption is... It makes sense for Darth Vader's storyline, because Darth Vader set out on his path to save the people he loves, and then he's failed that with Padme. And then at the end, when Luke Skywalker is getting all zappy zapped, he realizes, hey, the Sith is not the way to save my family. And he kills Emperor Palpatine. Spoiler alert for Return of the Jedi, guys. Just spoiler alerts. Like, that's just one specific path. I think that we end up in a world where there's different paths to becoming a Sith. For instance, like Luke, Darth Vader just kind of like taunted him with kind of the same thing that taunted or brought Anakin over to the dark side, where he's like, you can save your friends if you have the power of the dark side behind you. And Luke's able to say no and get his hand chopped off and all that. But like there's definitely different paths, and there's just like the quest for pure power, which it seems like Kylo Ren's on that, where all he wants is power, and that's just not interesting as a character, in my opinion. And
I mean, it can be, because I mean, I don't know. I mean, like when I look at it from a interest in pure power type of thing, like I feel like that's a little more in line with how you can play out dark side in like Knights of the Old Republic and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Like you will literally use and abuse those around you just to further yourself. So like, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll help you, but you have to pay me first, and then you kill them.
Yeah.
So.
But that's not. But as a character that like, obviously like there's a way that you can do it. Like I'm not gonna like say blanket like there's no way to make that interesting, but just at a base level that doesn't.
I mean,
it's a very one-dimensional. Style.
Sure, but I mean, like, it depends on what their goals are with Kylo Ren. I mean, if their goals are to make him like this interesting, super deep character that you end up kind of loving at the end, even if he doesn't have a redemption story, then it may not be the best option, but that's not necessarily what their goal might be. They may just want to have a character that you hate.
Yeah, but like I don't feel like I'm going... If he is just pure... Like, if there's a character that is just pure evil for the sake of being evil, as a main bad guy, like, Palpatine was definitely that character, but he was in the background. He wasn't really front and center for a lot of it. And he, like in the prequels, he was like working things behind the scenes. So it was kind of interesting to watch that happen. And then obviously in the originals, he was just kind of there, and he was evil, and he was like, arr. But you know, you kind of like feared him because everyone else feared him. But with like Kylo Ren, he's set up to be the main foil to Rey. So it's like they're going to butt heads. And just not having any redeeming qualities makes for a bad villain, in my opinion. And because you need to be interested in what they're doing, you have to kind of see what they're trying to do. And if all it is, oh, I just want to get stronger and stronger and brr, like that's not, I'm not going to see his side of the story as much. Like I'm not going to relate to it at all.
I mean, I can see what you're saying. I think you're being a little short-sighted, but at the same time, like, it is obviously all kind of up to the director and the writers and everything, because I feel like it is very, very possible to create a character that is just kind of like, you know, I'm a dick, deal with it, but is still interesting.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that there's a time aspect to it, where in a movie you have, you know, 2 hours, give or take, to get all these characters across, as opposed to in the game that you're talking about, where you can choose, like in Knights of the Republic, you can choose to be a Sith or use the dark side to your advantage or whatever, but you have, you know, 20 hours of gameplay to do that in, and it's your character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And like, I'm by no means saying it would be easy, but I feel like that kind of character is one that the Star Wars universe kind of needs.
Sure, and I mean, like, if they can do it, I would love, like I said, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
But my hesitation is that it's difficult to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. But I think the most important thing. Oh, sorry. You go ahead and finish your last thought. I'm going to move us on from this conversation.
I was just going to say, like, I just think it's something that the franchise needs. Because, I mean, especially, like, if they're completely, you know, retconning all of the canon and everything. And, like, Revan is no longer a character.
No, he's a character. His name is a character.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
but like, I don't know how much of his story is carried over.
Yeah, I mean, the Revan that we know is a question mark. Like, he's not actually canon anymore in the sense of what we would hope. But the franchise needs a character like that kind of takes the main spotlight, because Luke, you know, until you like dig deep into him as a character, like he is the, you know, essentially like the pretty boy, like the one that's like pure good and everything.
Yeah.
And especially like looking at it as a kid, like it was honestly kind of like unfortunate that Darth Vader had that redemption arc at the end for me as a child, because like I was watching this and I was like, oh, you know, Darth Vader's like this, you know, terrible guy, you know, yeah, you know, kill him and everything. But then like he had that moment at the end and I'm like, well, now like I don't feel as negatively towards him, so he's like less of an evil person, which I mean, I get that that's the point.
Yeah.
But like as a child, like I don't know. It's way too hard for me to explain without coffee. But
sure.
Basically, like, you have, like, the pinnacle of good in Luke, and then there's nothing to, like, counterbalance that, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, that would be Palpatine. Palpatine encountered him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, you and I get that, but like as a kid, it's just like, oh, he's just some old wrinkly dude. Nobody cares. Like he doesn't have a lightsaber. He can't be strong. Like,
I mean, I'm sure, but I mean, like, you have to keep in mind that like the Star Wars is all, or the prequels and the originals are really the story of Anakin. Like it's not like
yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and that's kind of why, like, in terms of what is probably possible at this point, like just from what we know and everything, I do want a Darth Vader solo movie, just to have him go super evil during his time between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and just have him do like a bunch of evil shit.
Yeah.
With like no remorse, maybe like a little bit of remorse, just like to be like, you know, I don't, yeah, whatever. Like, I miss Padme, and then he goes out and like kills a couple Jedi, and he's like, that felt good. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the most important thing that I saw from the trailer, though,
yeah,
Kylo Ren's mask is smashed, so we're not gonna get any of that stupid fucking voice filter thing that pissed me off.
Honestly, I would rather him just like have the mask, but have it like accidentally fused to his face.
Yeah, that too. Like, it's one of those things where like I can't tell which one's better.
He's way more intimidating and like way more like, oh, you're evil with that stupid voice filter. Like as dumb as it may sound.
Okay, so I would rather him have the mask, but with like a better filter on the voice.
Even if it was the same filter, I wouldn't have cared, because without the mask, it feels like I look at him and I'm like, you're like some dude from a boy band trying to hit me with a glow stick. Like, you are not intimidating. I am not afraid of you.
Well, he's gonna have a sick scar and maybe yellow eyes, Ben.
Oh, right, because that makes you scary.
It could. I don't know. He does have too much of a baby face. Honestly,
he really does. Like, I mean, the hair doesn't help him. Like, they need to like shave his head or something.
No, because speaking from experience, that just makes you look younger.
Well, I don't care if he looks young. There's nothing wrong with looking young, but he's way too much of a pretty boy. Like Kylo Ren as like a character, and I mean this in both like a dig to the character, but also a compliment to the actor. Mm-hmm. Like, he's way too good looking to be evil. Like, you don't look at him and go like, you're an evil son of a bitch, aren't you? You go like, you're gonna like sing songs at my daughter, and she's gonna have your posters all over her room. She's gonna write letters to you that you don't respond to. Like, he's not an evil looking guy, and even if you change the color of his eyes and put a scar across his face or something, he's still not gonna look evil. They need to like shave his head, and like that scar better be like more than just like a little like, you know, from like a small cut. It better be like it got like fucking infected and started growing shit, and then it healed.
All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. We hope that there's some Grey Jedi, Dark Jedi shenanigans happening, and yeah, I'm excited. Like, I don't feel like this trailer made me any more excited than I was, but it definitely makes me curious as to what direction they're going in.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time on Split Couch Games.
Bye.
Bye.